Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. Hey, it's our Independence Day edition. Let me tell you, it's a week of 4th of July. I hope everybody is thankful for all the freedoms we have in this country and for all the prices that were paid to get us that freedom. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start up in Northeast Florida this week, work our way down the East Coast, up the West Coast, out the Panhandle, and find out everything that's going on with the fishing. Something else that we wanted to do this week, we got a request from a listener to please talk about hot water. And is the water hotter than normal this year? And what are the guys' tactics when it gets so hot? Well, let's get started and find out. We'll start with Captain David Voorhees up in the northeast corner. His report and all of our reports this week will be brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids. The Castaway Hat Co, the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, the right stuff, the low prices, every day. Now it's time to hit Florida. Let's get up into the northeast corner and check in with longtime inshore guide and a true student of the game of inshore fishing, I promise you, Captain David Voorhees. David, how are you?
Hey, Ricky, I'm doing good, buddy.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Well, you know, it's been an interesting tide, and we talk about the tide up here. We have a saying, we live and die by the tide, and the tide is very important to us in Northeast Florida. And we sort of had early low tides or late in the evening low tides, which means if you started early in the morning last week, you ended up fishing an incoming tide, which is not my favorite tide to fish in Northeast Florida. I tend to be wanting to fish around that higher water right now. It seems to be ushering in a lot more clean water, which has been nice, and cooler water, which we'll get into in a little bit. But that higher water has been a good bite for me. I sort of like that top of the outgoing tide. We had some real quality fish. Now, we're not catching numbers just because of, being sort of the moon phase and stuff that we were on. But we did see some really nice quality fish up on the mud flats, and even a couple over 30, like 31, 32 inchers caught in 2 feet of water. And that's the fight we look for. That's the catch we really like. Those big reds in about 2 feet of water on light tackle, they're really going to yank your chain, and it's pretty spectacular. Trout bite was just hasn't really been there this year. I just really given up on trout. I mean, I'm going to do a little night fishing coming up here real soon on this next moon phase we have, and I will be giving a report on night fishing for trout. Flounder, outstanding, still good, still producing lots of fish. We had some real nice keepers this week. Even went to one little creek. Now, again, you got to remember, I'm fishing that high outgoing tide. So where do I like to find my flounder? I like to find them right at the mouth of little feeder creeks, especially the ones that seem to have a sandbar at the end of them. And, Rick, you've lived here long enough. That's pretty much most of them have a real nice
yes,
sandbar. Yeah. And so, even one this week, we sat there and boom, boom, boom. We pulled 3 nice keeper reds back to back in 3 consecutive casts, came out of one little creek. And the creek I'm talking about was no more than 5 feet wide, a very little, don't even call it a creek. A lot of them, I just call them runouts. But that's how we're getting our flounder. And it's been one good story for us in Northeast Florida is we've really seen a really good flounder bite, and that makes me happy.
David, it has felt awfully hot to me up here lately. Does the water temperature seem to be a little bit high to you? And if it is high, when you see it get up pushing 90 degrees, which I know you've seen before, how do you change your tactics?
Well, Rick, we're talking about the tide now. Northeast Florida is unique from the rest of the state. And that is that we have the largest tide fluctuation of any place in the state. Panhandle, the Big Bend area, South Florida, the Keys, the lower East Coast, and on up to the, up to Northeast Florida. But we absolutely have the largest tide fluctuation. And I really believe, Rick, a lot of our water temperature, now this time of year, as hot as it's been, we've actually seen cooler water. So that tells me the water temperature is more influenced by the tide because of that flush of good water. Now, granted, it also depends on that direction of the wind. We get those east winds coming in off the ocean. It's going to push in some cooler water. How many summers have we seen these cold water upwellings where we get this burst of extremely cold water, at certain times of the year where we get what we call a rollover in the water column, and it ushers up this ice cold water from deep down,
right?
And it'll come in and affect our water. So I think water temperature to us in Northeast Florida, you got to keep an eye on it. And Rick, you're talking to somebody that constantly keeps one eye on his temperature gauge on his depth finder. I think it's a very important tool, and I'm surprised at how many anglers don't pay any attention to water temperature because in some of the places I fish, I can run up and down the intercoastal, and I will actually see, let's say, for example, as I'm fishing down towards the J. Turner Butler area, I can see and go and work my way north all the way up to the St. Johns River. I can see that water temperature sometimes change up to 3 degrees, which means that water coming in off the ocean is a little bit colder. So a lot of times I'm looking for the right color of water. I'm looking for that right temperature, and that's how I'm going to find a lot of my fish.
All right, define right water temperature for me.
Well, it's all relative. Sometimes if I see a really sharp change in water temperature, let's say, for example, this week we've had that 82, 83 water temperature. That's not really hot, Rick. That's for this time of year, it should be 87, 88, as hot as it's been. But the water temperature actually has been cooler. Now, with that being said, if I see a sharp change one way or the other, as much as 2 to 3 feet, that tends to make the fish a little, that can shut them off. That can make them sort of start acting funny or a little tougher to bite. So when I'm talking about, the right temperature, I'm looking at places. In other words, I've moved back into creeks off the intercoastal waterway and saw the water temperature rise 4 degrees. Mm-hmm. And I back there and I'm not catching fish. And I'm like, well, boy, what's going on? And then I look at the water temperature and I say, oh my God, it's so hot back here. Hot water, less oxygen. So I move out of that creek, go out along the intercoastal, and lo and behold, I'm catching fish.
So if I had to ask you for a favorite water temperature, what would your range be?
My favorite range would be anywhere from 65 to 75 is nice because you're going to get a lot of good redfish. But that comfort zone is all the way up to 85. When we get above 85, I struggle. When we get below 65, we struggle.
Excellent. That gives us a great range. Thank you, David. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely, Rick. Tight lines, buddy.
David Voorhees from right here in Northeast Florida. Let's move it on down to the East Central and check in with one Jim Ross. Our thanks to David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report. Now let's find out everything you need to know about fishing in East Central Florida from one Captain Jim Ross. Jimmy, how are you?
Doing fantastic this week. Wanted to just say happy 4th of July week to everybody out there. Hopefully you've been safe over the weekend, and whether you went fishing or did other things, hopefully you got to spend good time with the family. And if you like going to church, hopefully you got to do that too. I know I did. But I'll tell you, Rick, the fishing has been pretty darn good this week. And it's not good just in the flats or on the near shore. It's good on the offshore too. We've had a consistent bite. Nothing crazy, but just good, consistent fishing this week. big variety swing. For me this week, I had mangrove snapper. I had speckled trout. I had snook. We had tarpon to 140 pounds. Now, this is all lagoon fishing. This is in the Banana River Lagoon. We had redfish. We had ladyfish. We had sailcats. We had just a good variety of species, most of them hitting live pilchards floated under a cork near mangroves, with the exception of the bigger tarpon, which we found out in the middle of the Banana River, feeding on big pogies out there. Same thing's happening on the Indian River around the Melbourne and through O'Galley and up to Pineda Causeways. There's fish, big tarpon feeding on those bait fish in those areas as well. Near shore, really good bite near shore on the king mackerel. The guys and gals that got out this week had, especially to the north of the port and up towards Ponce Inlet, had really good king mackerel action, also tarpon action behind the shrimp boats. And then swinging offshore, one of the best mangrove snapper bites we've had in a while. Even the party boats were pulling in a bunch of fish, and one of the boats out of Canaveral had a limit of snapper. They had 4 of them over 10 pounds. That was Captain Darren Malin that had that catch. So good, solid fishing this week. And like I said, nothing super over the top. Well, maybe with the exception of a big tarpon here and a bunch of snapper, big snapper there. But just good, consistent fishing no matter what you wanted to do. That's
fantastic. That I tell you what, when we get good fishing in July, that's pleasing to me. I'm glad to see that. Jim,
I will take it.
We get a lot of hot water this time of year. Most of the guys I've talked to this evening have said their water hasn't been that hot. How about yours? And what are your go-to tactics when the water gets too hot?
Well, yes and no. No, the last couple of days, it's not been real hot because we've had overcast skies almost 2/3 of the day because the storms have been starting early and then the clouds have not been clearing. It's been muggy, but the sun hasn't been shining on the water, so the water temperature hasn't been super, super hot. Last week was exactly what you just described, though. Hot water temps, and once the water hits about 89 degrees in the lagoon system, they stop. So we had a couple of days last week where the bite just shut down once the water temperature got that high. It would start around 86 to 87, and by the middle of the day, it was hot. They weren't biting. They just shut down. So in that case, you get out early. That's the main thing. But this week, we've not had that scenario, so we really haven't. It doesn't really apply. But when it does apply, earlier is obviously best. Here's the other thing: downsize your bait just like you do when it gets cold, and slow your presentation.
Really? Okay.
Everything gets sluggish because the oxygen in the water is dense. It's not there's not as much oxygen, so the fish don't have as much oxygen to breathe. They're not as lively. They slow down. It's just like you and I when we get hot. You know, we're out there mowing the grass in the hot sun, and we're going, man, I'd really want to be back in that air conditioning, just sitting down doing nothing. The fish are the same way. They want to be cool. They don't want to be moving. They want to conserve energy because it's so hot that they can't regain the energy from the amount of oxygen in the water.
Makes perfect sense to me, Cap. I understand. All right, look, I appreciate it. I hope your fishing holds for you, Jimmy, and I hope we get to talk to you next week.
I'm looking forward to it, Rick.
Okay. Captain Jim Ross from East Central, certainly glad to get his report every week. Now it's Stewart time, my favorite little fishing village this time of year. John Earhart, are there any sailfish down there waiting for me?
I got to tell you, all of a sudden the sailfish have exploded in Stewart, Florida.
Come on.
Now is prime time.
Come on, that is outstanding news. The sound like they had a pretty good little tournament down there this last weekend.
Yeah, they had the One More Bite fishing tournament, and that was a fishing tournament for both bay boats and smaller offshore boats, and they did very well. I seen first place I think caught 11 sails, second place got 10 sailfish. This was a one-day tournament, so it's not like this was over the course of a few days, and it seemed like it was just perfect timing for this tournament. Straight out front of the St. Lucie Inlet, 90 to 160 feet of water. If you had a live bait out, it seemed like you were going to catch some sailfish. So it was perfect timing for the tournament. The sailfishing has definitely picked up. There's been a lot of bonitas and blackfin and a lot of kingfish you've had to deal with. So you want to have plenty of live baits if you're going out chasing sails exclusively, because you're going to have a lot of bycatch right now. If there's a little bit of an east wind, right now is real good. It seems like it's really started to pick up this week.
Oh, I hope so. I'm on my way down there tomorrow. What else is going on? Anything inshore?
Yeah, the snook fishing around the St. Lucie Inlet has been pretty phenomenal. I've been catching 16 to 20 fish a charter, and they've been upwards of 40 inches. So these are big breeding snooks. So you want to reel them in quick, get a quick picture of one or two big ones, and try and keep the rest in the water and release them so that they can continue to do their thing and promote future generations of snooks for us to catch each and every season.
Sounds like a plan to me. That is outstanding, John. Hey, has your water seemed unusually warm to you this year, or is it about average?
It seemed like it was warmer a little bit there for a week or two, but it's been about average lately. We get a lot of warm water or temperature differences when they're dumping a lot of water from the lake.
Uh-huh.
They haven't been doing that in our area, so we've been pretty good, to be honest.
Well, that's great. It sounds to me like maybe I was just talking about it with Ray Rocher a few minutes ago. It seems to me like maybe the dolphin fishing was a little better this year, and that kind of following a downturn of 3 or 4 years in a row sounds like it's making a little bit of a rebound.
Yeah, and it very well could be that we were kind of in a drought, so we had, different water temperatures because we didn't have all that freshwater runoff, which allowed those mahi to come closer to shore, and, we didn't have to go as far out to catch them.
That could well be. Cap, I will see you down there tomorrow. I look forward to it, and thanks for a great report.
Yeah, expect to catch plenty of sailfish because they're around.
I like your attitude. Thank you, John Earhart. Captain John Earhart of Chaos Fishing Charters in Stuart, Florida.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Now, it's a great pleasure to me. We introduced him last week for the first time. One of my all-time heroes and our new Miami action spotter, Captain Ray Rocher from the Miss Brit Fleet. Cap, how we doing?
We're good.
Good. Now, I understand you are where tonight?
Cape May, New Jersey.
Cape May, New Jersey. You're fishing the World Cup Marlin Tournament, right?
Right, on July 4th. Around the world. It's a pretty cool format.
It is indeed a cool format. I don't know that Cape May, New Jersey comes to mind right away.
Well, there's some big ones up here.
How about that?
One of the 3 biggest fish I've ever seen was up here in the Mid-Atlantic 500 years ago.
I'll be darned. Ray, the biggest one I've ever seen, which probably would never match yours, believe it or not, I saw in about 118 feet of water off of Fort Pierce.
Wow.
It was just massive. You would have never thought that. How many boats are in the World Cup this year?
Most years it's about 150.
Okay. That's super cool.
I haven't checked.
And it's one day, right?
Right, 500-pound minimum.
And what's first prize?
$9,000 Last year it was right at $1 million.
Whew! That'd be a good payday, Cap. It sure would. Tell me about fishing off Miami this week.
The dolphin fishing actually picked up. We've seen some good numbers of fish, not a lot of big fish, a fair amount of keepers. I would call it 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Last day I fished, I probably saw 200 fish in 6 schools.
Wow.
Just picked away at the legal fish and had fun releasing shorts. And they've been a little further off, almost to the sword grounds, but scattered in between two. One of our boats today fished about halfway or 2/3 of the way to the sword grounds. And he didn't catch his limit, but caught plenty for his group. I think they had about 15 fish or so, keepers, and released at least that many. And then the other boat caught a few more. Yeah. And he was, one guy was a 3/4 day and the other guy was a full day. Fish are scattered, and the best fish were a little further off, best numbers. But decent fishing, not the best it's ever been, but certainly worth going.
Ray, I think it's time for us to say we had a little better mahi season this year, don't you?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think this year we've seen more consistency, and that's what means the most to me, because consistency means the migration is happening on a steady basis. It's not just a little shot of fish for a few days and then it's terrible for a week or two. That's not good.
Mm-hmm. Our subject tonight, Ray, is water temp. Is your water temp above average this year?
Not really. 81.5 today.
Okay.
And maybe we're a little bit different because the Gulf Stream's a little compressed from Miami to Bimini.
Right.
So we don't get big expanses of warm water. It keeps pushing through and it's moderated by whatever that Gulf Stream temperature is. We've seen 83, 84 degrees in the past, so 81.5 is not excessive.
Mm-hmm. I see. All right. Well, good deal. Well, I am tickled to death to hear that your mahi fishing's good. And if it's okay with you, with your permission, I'm going to say a little extra prayer for your safe passage and a very large fish for tomorrow.
Yes, sir. That'd be fine.
Okay. Thanks, Captain Ray. We appreciate it. Ray Rocher from Miami and the Miss Brit Fleet. Our thanks to Ray Rocher for a great Miami report. They had more mahi this week. He said lots of little fish. Hey, mahi grow in a hurry. Lots of little fish means lots of big fish real soon. Time to hit Alamorada and check in with one Brandon Captain Bean Storin. Cap, how we doing?
I'm great, Rick. How you been?
I've been excellent, buddy. Tell me about your fishing.
It's been pretty good. We've still been pulling out a couple big tarpon down here. We've been doing some snook fishing if you can get them past the sharks. Then we also been having like a red hot big trout bite, which is not in a sharky area at all, which is great fishing. Some different things mixed in with them, like jacks, bladed fish, mangrove snapper, just like good light tackle action. As far as offshore, we're seeing more mahi and we're seeing a few good fish here and there. It seems like each of our charter captains are getting a shot at a good fish each day with plenty of schoolies involved. Also, the mangrove snappers are spawning on the edge of the reef now, which is a blast too. Some good light tackle fun. And that's pretty much what's been going on for this week.
I got to tell you, Bean, one of the great joys in my life is doing this every week with you guys and talking to you all around the state. So far, we're at the halfway point for 2022. So far, if there's a fish of the year, seems to me like it's got to be mangrove snapper. Everybody's catching them.
You know what? I guess sometimes I get people who they want to keep like a snook. They ask me like, I want to grease a snook. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or I want to grease a red or something like that. And I look at them. I'm like, why? I'm like, we got so many mangrove snappers that you can't do a dent on their population, and they taste phenomenal. They're almost second to none, and they're such a blast on light tackle. If you hook like a 15+ inch mang on light tackle, that thing will rip some drag.
Yes, sir. Sure will. And sure will taste good on the fry pan, too. Bean, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Always.
All right, Captain Bean Storen out of Bud and Mary's in Alamorada. Always glad to have him on board. You know, today's new outdoorsmen have so many advantages over us old timers. I can only imagine how much easier it would have been to learn to fish and hunt if we had had Academy Sports and Outdoors in my day. Well, get ready, Panama City, because your outdoor experience is about to get a whole lot better. That's because Academy Sports and Outdoors on the way. Here's what they'll do. They'll assemble your grill. They'll assemble your bike. They'll bore sight your gun. They'll spool your line. They'll exchange your propane. And they're going to do it all at Academy's best price guarantee. The store is coming in late July. But until then, you can still shop online at academy.com or through Academy's mobile app. That's where you can sign up for all the digital ads and offers that you'll need to enhance your outdoor experience. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. Time to hit 10,000 Islands. That means it's Steve Dahl time. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Getting through summertime best I can. Tell me how your fishing is.
It's pretty good. The backcountry, we've been talking for a couple weeks now, relative to the warming trend here, and that's, kind of slowing some things down. But the snook really perked up this week, which is really good. I got an influx of bait all along the beaches, and the snook are cooperating. So it's been pretty much, any shady, deeper pocket you can find on the mangroves, you're going to catch, multiple snook out of those little holes. So you'll also probably get, some smaller Goliath grouper up to like 20, 25 pounds this time of year. A lot of those deeper holes on the mangrove islands actually have undercut banks, and those guys like to hang out down there with the snook. So don't think that you got a 40-pound snook on if you get one of those Goliaths. But that's kind of been our inshore bite. Surprisingly, our trout bite's actually been pretty good despite the water temps. Fish are running a little bit on the bigger side as well, but try to keep those mid to upper teen fish, just because this time of year in that warm water you might find some worms in some of those oversized trout. So just keep that in mind. And then our offshore bite is still pretty good. It's all the snapper species are well in play. The red grouper bite has actually been really good on live pinfish. The bigger snapper are coming on live pinfish. The cut bait will catch just about anything out there on the bottom, but those live pins seem to be the kind of the ticket for those bigger snapper and those keeper reds. So it's been good.
Steve, it's hot and getting hotter, obviously, and our water temps, even though most of the guys have reported that they've stayed pretty cool this week because of all the rain, but they're bound to get warm. What changes in your hot weather fishing?
Fish, obviously, I think there's a lot more dissolved oxygen in cooler water than there's warmer water. And for me, I think those fish are still there, Rick, especially in the backcountry where we're at. We have a lot of shallow water in our region. And I elect kind of to stray away from that bite a little bit. I like those deeper pockets, deeper holes that we, kind of talked about. But as far as those really shallow water bites, I kind of stay away from that because I just don't want to put the extra stress on the fish, So that's the main thing that really changes for me. I do a lot more near shore fishing this time of year. I'll do some, tarpon fishing right at first light, and maybe even at dusk, for some juveniles. But for the most part, I kind of change my game plan once that water temp gets in that upper 80-degree range, and we're there. And it's sporting with 90 in some of these backwaters, and to me, that's just a personal choice. I don't want to put the extra stress on that fish.
Gotcha. That's great. Steve, as always, great report, and we appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, you got it. You can count on it.
All right, Captain Steve Dahl. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for a great 10,000 Islands report. Now we're going to head up to the southwest section and check in with Greg Stamper. Snooky, how we doing?
We're doing good, Rick. Been a hot week, but fishing's been pretty good overall.
You know, you mentioned that. Is your water temperature up quite a bit, Greg?
You know, it also depends, honestly, on where you are. So, like in the back bays and that dark bottom, yeah, it's very hot. We get some temperatures in some areas that might reach 87, 88 degrees recently. But then again, we also get these hard rains that, start in the afternoons that cool things off. So it depends on what time of the day you are, where you are on really kind of what temperatures you get. The guys who are near shore and offshore, they have a little bit more consistent temperature because there's a lot more water beneath them. And there's a little bit more flow going back and forth.
If you're trapped in fishing hot water, your charter has to fish during this time and the water's hot, what tactics do you change?
So I kind of relate it to you and I, Rick. When it's hot out, I don't want to eat a lot unless it's free and easy.
That's true.
I'll just kind of pick and graze. So the cut baits are really one of the ways of getting attention on these big snook and these reds that are just hanging out. I don't like to pound these fish hard, so I do kind of up my tackle a bit so that I can get them quickly, keep them in the water, and then release them. Because when the water gets this hot, it can be very difficult. Now, trout and stuff, which, is easy pickings, that kind of slows down with the hot water because it's getting a lot more fresh water in it. Those flats aren't, as salty as they should be. What does go good, which is a little bit weird for a lot of people to understand, but our pompano fishing gets really good when we get these strong tides.
That is
and
strange.
This clean water. Yeah, on this hot water. This week in the back bays, Rick, we were fishing some of the passes. We had some decent tides, but not great. The good tides are coming this week, Rick, just an FYI for everybody. But we caught quite a few nice pompano. Anywhere we found clean water that was moving hard, most of that's near our passes, we did very well.
Excellent. Well, good deal. Well, that tells us a lot, Greg, and I hope the showers keep coming for you and keep your water temperature somewhat moderated and you're fishing good. Have you heard much from the offshore boys? How's the bite going out there?
They just continue to do very well in those ARs. It'll all wind down in another few weeks, but the guys have gotten out a little bit deeper. They're catching lots of fish, but what's cool about this time of the year and the availability of being able to keep a few ARs, because you got to have a nice boat and got to be willing to blow some fuel to get those things. But they're getting out there right now, and they're running into wahoo almost kind of like on a regular basis.
Cool.
Really cool. They've caught quite a few dolphin, a lot of blackfin tuna. Nothing crazy. I didn't see any blackfins that were maybe, I'm going to give them 10 pounds, give or take, were the big ones. But those are nice fish, and I'll take that any day because I love me some fresh tuna. And then, of course, when they're dropping down deep, they're catching those mangrove snappers, mutt snappers. And I'll be honest with you, the yellowtail snappers in this neck of the woods it's just getting better and better. So I hope that continues for those guys because those are good eating as well.
That is cool as can be. As always, Greg, we appreciate the heck out of it. Please tell me we can check it with you next week.
You got it, Rick.
All right, Captain Greg Stamper. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest report. It's West Central time. You know that means Captain Ray Markham. Raymond, how are you?
Hot.
Yes. Yes, it is hot, now that you mention it.
Hot and steamy, yes, sir. We've had a lot of rain this week, but we've had a lot of heat this week. So, consequently, we've had a lot of humidity.
How's your water temperature?
It's really up and down. The days that we've got sunny weather, we got water temperatures as high as 91, 92 degrees.
Ooh, that's hot.
Gulf water temperature seems to be relatively steady at anywhere from 85 to 87, depending on the depth that you're talking. If you're near shore, it's obviously going to be a little warmer. So the guys that are working the incoming tides may be getting a little bit of cooling water coming in on the flats and whatnot. But the guys that are heading offshore, most of them that are doing well and getting a lot of big fish, they're going deep. I mean, they're going, 150, 200 feet at least. And, for a lot of those guys, you're looking at probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, 50 to 75 miles. So, they're all over the board, and that's kind of a good thing because it kind of spreads out the kill rate, if you will, because I'm seeing tons and tons of pictures of people coming in with lots of gag grouper, red snapper, mangrove snapper, and the inshore guys are just really whacking some big snook, and hopefully they're all getting turned away lively. So
yeah, it's a little more difficult to release them in the hot water, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I have found over the years that I can find water temperature varying as much as 10 degrees in places that I fish. And I'm talking about usually running within, a couple of miles. Mm-hmm. And it works both for me and against me. The thing is that I look at 2 times of year as being the same: spring and fall, and summer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And spring and fall. Winter isn't really a huge concern, but as far as water temperature is concerned, most important thing I've got on my boat is the water temperature gauge on my Lowrance.
Give me a tactic for hot water. You're on a charter, you're stuck in hot water, you got to catch fish. Give me what helps you do it?
Well, it obviously depends on several different things. One of the things is water depth. Another is tides. So if you're looking at incoming tides, you're probably looking at cooler water coming in and water moving up underneath the mangroves. So fish in the mid part of the day are typically looking for a shady spot to get in out of the sun, just like you and I are. And if they can't do that, depth is their next way of taking care of that. And, I look at a water swing depth of anywhere of 1 to 3 feet on an average here. So on a high tide, I might have 3 feet more than mean low, and on new and full moons, I may have negative tides that are a foot or more below mean low level. So I take that all in consideration when I'm planning a trip, and of course, wind direction plays a part as well as afternoon thunderstorms. So,
yeah.
We got thunderstorms that pop up, and when you have a super hot day, and typically that's when you get those thunderstorms, it can cool stuff off like instantly. And water surface temperature is what you look at that point. And when you're getting to that, you start going back to areas that there were fish, but fish that were very lethargic. And those fish typically will turn on, and you can probably actually get it turned on topwater bite on it. So
it sounds to me, and it was one of our listeners that emailed me and asked me this question about hot water tactics. Sounds to me like they're very, very similar to cold water tactics. Slow everything way down.
This is exactly why I say things are like the same twice a year.
Uh-huh. Yep.
The winter and summer are very similar, and the spring and fall are very similar. Right. So, that's why I say winter and summer are my 2 most important times to take a look at that thermometer on the boat.
Gotcha. Raymond, great report. Thank you as always, and please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir, if the grass doesn't overtake me.
You got it. Thank you, Ray. Captain Ray Markham from the West Central Coast. I'm not sure who first coined the phrase, the only thing saltwater can't destroy is saltwater, but I know what it meant to the engineers at Shimano. That sounded like a challenge, and their response is now on the shelves of Strike Zone Fishing. The new spinning reels are called Twin Power, and they feature the Infinity Drive, which means there's not a fish around they can't stop. Because of the new heat sink drag, that means a wahoo or a tuna can run as fast as they want, and you'll never have to worry about your drag heating up. Even better, the new Twin Powers are built to become the best reels ever at fighting saltwater intrusion. Listen, everybody's heard or experienced the problems with seeing the latest and greatest actually appearing on the shelves of your local tackle shop during the supply shortage. But listen, I'm here to tell you that Shimano's partnership with Strike Zone means you can always count on finding the latest and greatest lining the shelves of both Strike Zone locations. Our thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now let's head on up north a little bit and get to Homosassa, where we get to talk to the mayor every week, William Toney. William, how are you?
I'm doing good, bud. Sitting here, it's opening week of scallop season, 4th of July, right around the corner. It's just a fantastic time to be here.
I understand. It's paradise over there this time of year. That's for sure. How's the scalloping been?
Now, what I like to tell people is, sometimes, it makes it easy. Sometimes it makes it hard. But then we'll say right now, you're going to have to work to get a limit. But, you're out there. If you can give it, 3 to 5 hours, you're going to get plenty enough to take home and have a meal that night.
There you go. Well, July 19th has to be the apex of the scallop season this year, William.
Yeah, that's when it gets to the really good part, So, that's where you can close. You could be Ray Charles and go down there and just find the limit, no problem.
When Stevie Wonder gets his limit, that's when it's time for me to go.
Right.
Hey, William, let me ask you a question. Your water over there is starting to heat up. I know everybody's is. Is the rain keeping you cool down a bit, or what are your tactics for hot water fishing when we get to this time of year?
Well, what happened, Rick, we had actually about the end of June, last couple of weeks, we got up to about 91 degrees over here on the Big Bend, and it got hot. And I do know that, a lot of times like that, if we were to hit trout, you had to get there very early. And we were fishing them near deep water, some deep finger channels that, are 10 to 12 foot deep. And the adjacent flats is what we were targeting, at that time. But then once it got calm, we didn't have any wind for about 7 days. I'd run out to that 10 to 14 foot of water. And we would go out there, and some of my best rocks, you could see the mangrove snappers, you could see grunts, you could see actually some nice keeper grouper. But the thing was, I always told the people, I said, we're going to get 3 or 4 fish off this, and that was it. And we would sit there and catch maybe a nice keeper mangrove, maybe some white grunts, and then the bite would just die. That was it. And then sometimes you pull up the rock, and the first bite might be a big grouper and break you off on a light tackle, but then that was it. You had to pick up and ride and keep moving. And kind of that's how it's been right now. Our water has dropped back down into the high 80s, and those afternoon rainstorms and cloudy days have helped that. But the Gulf right now is just very, very hot. And that's what I suggest. If you want to get out there and catch some fish, keep on moving.
You got it. Great report. Thank you so much, William. We will see you over there soon, and keep them biting until we get there.
You got it, bud.
Okay, Captain William Toney. Before we put a wrap on what's been kind of an abbreviated version of our podcast this week, due to the 4th of July, we are going to hear a word from the Castaway Hat Company. I'll bet you don't even remember the days all us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was the coolest, and even if you weren't a surfing god, you sure looked the part. Oh, have a lot of us paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problems and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to the Castaway Hat Company. They not only provide our podcaster with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brim you ever saw. You may think your bimini or top or your T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. So do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's coolest anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. For each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company will pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterways. Hey, the burning Florida sun won't be roasting your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys who spent our lifetimes on the water. So go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. Castaway Hat Company, a hat for every adventure. Well, we had a lot of fun going around the state tonight, and we got a lot of encouraging reports, I thought. Are very encouraged by John Earhart's number of sailfish in Stewart. Ray Rocher talked about 200 dolphin in the last 2 days, with about half of them being legal. That's incredible. Said he saw several big schools of juvenile mahi. Awfully glad to see them. Mangrove snapper biting everywhere. It's been a good week. Hey, this week's Florida Action Spotter podcast has been brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. It's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, you want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. By the Castaway Hat Co. That's the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low prices every day. Hey, I know I sure enjoyed bringing you this week's podcast. I hope you are enjoying it too. Hey, drop us a line, rick@floridasportsman.com, and let us know what you'd like us to ask the pros about. That's where this week's topic came from. We'd love to hear your ideas. Until next week, for Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, we'll see you on the rip.